they come out of goodness, and that if you follow them, they will show you how to make an impact. But no, that's not what we need to do. We need to do it as individuals. We need to look at fact, okay? Don't look at ideology. Look at fact. Sometimes ideology works, but only if it lays in a place of fact. That's why you have to look at the biblical verse not just as a literalist position. You have to look at it in a Gnostic position, in a metaphorical position. You have to look at it that way. Look at it in both ways. You can learn something from it, from looking at it in both ways. Looking at it as a literalist and looking at it as someone who's looking at it metaphorically, or looking at it through gnosis, through spirit, understanding of spiritual mystery. And, again, this last part is talking about the consciousness of care, talking about the Christ consciousness. That's why it says make spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Meaning, no more goats, to be killed for sacrifice. No more sheep to be sacrificed. In the Bible, Jesus laid down his life, and he was the ultimate lamb. But now Jesus is asking, the Bible is asking, this biblical verse is asking us to sacrifice to Jesus, to God, through the mind, through our consciousness. Let go of the evil. He's giving us the law of love. No more do we have to think about us being black, white, being Jewish, Christian, Muslim. We must come to the spiritual understanding of the natural law that we were created by a creator, and that we have a spiritual law that we must live by. And if you do decide, because this is where free will comes from, if you do decide to step away from the natural law, it will come down on you. I mean, that's just how the natural law works. It's not controlled by anything or anyone. Even God has, created it and let it go because it is his law. And what is this, natural law? Well, Mark Passio kind of describes it as this. It is the law that surrounds man's consciousness, and how man's consciousness reverberates into the universe and creates a reality. And this reality is affected, of course, by man's consciousness because it was originally created by man's consciousness in the first place. Or at least the effects of what's happening in his universe. So, you think good things, and you act upon these good things. That's a big part, a part of Mark Passio's description of the natural law, that it has to be connection through the mind, body, and spirit. So, it has to be first from the spirit, then to the mind, and then a physical action is created. Okay. Through your will, through your physical will. And it could be a mental will, a spiritual will. But there also has to be physical action behind it as well. It cannot be done without it. That's the reason why we have the three parts as a whole. It cannot be done without it. So this is why God is so necessary. This is why God is a necessity. Because without God, we are just mere pebbles. We are mere rocks, living rocks that don't think for itself, don't have true consciousness. That don't have true care, that don't make true impact. Friedrich Nietzsche had an amazing rebuttal against atheism. And it's what most people would call the parable of a madman. And the parable of the madman is amazing. It's a warning to the people that we have killed God, and that through our murderous acts, we're going to have to work very hard and change all of history just to get that consciousness back, to get that thing within us, that empathy, to keep us from becoming complete animals and destroying ourselves. Let me go ahead and read the parable of the madman, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. This comes from the Gay Science, and this translation is translated from Walter Kaufmann. And again, this was originally written by Friedrich Nietzsche. Okay, the parable of the madman. Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, "I seek God, I seek God." As many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then. He provoked much laughter. "Has he got lost?" asked one. "Did he lose his way like a child?" asked another. "Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage? Immigrated?" Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. "Whither is God?" he cried. "I will tell you. We have killed him, you and I, all of us, here his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained the earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually? Backward? Forward? Sideward? In all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as though an infant nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we need to light lanterns in the morning? So we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God. Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods too decompose. God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves? The murderers of murderers. What was the holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned and has bled to death under the knives? Who will wipe away this blood off of us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed, and whoever is born after us, for the sake of this deed, he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. Here, the madman fell silent and looked again at his listeners, and they too were silent, stared at him in astonishment. At last he threw the lantern on the ground, and it broke into pieces and went on. "I have come too early," he said then. "My time is not yet. The tremendous event is still on its way, still wandering. It has not yet reached the ears of men. Lightning and thunder require time. The light of stars requires time. Deeds, though done, still require time to be seen and heard. The deed is still more distant from than most of the distant stars, and yet they have done it themselves." Powerful, 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 powerful. At the time, Friedrich Nietzsche knew that whenever he, wrote this, that this was going to lay on lame ears. That when people heard this, they would just laugh at him and, be like, well, we're much more intelligent than our ancestors. We don't believe in a silly man in the sky. What point is there in that? What point is there in that? Well, he told him, you can't see what has happened yet. You can't tell what has happened yet. But in future generations, you're going to see it. You're going to see all the problems and pain of destroying the necessity of God, destroying God himself. You see it now. You see it in the feminists who've gone just mad, crazy, that are like focused on the intent of destroying the power of the male virility. And it's just really, it really is crazy, because the further we get away from God, the less empathy and sympathy we have for others, and the less, understanding, and the less being able to connect to others. We're destroying this. We're destroying our communication with each other, and you see it in identity politics. You see it in all forms of just policing each other, policing people continuously, without looking at your own hypocrisy. I mean, when Jesus, was being claimed to heal on the Sabbath, and being told that, he was creating a sin, he told them, have you not, are you not tying up your oxen? Are you not working on the Sabbath? It's hypocrisy. It's like at the beginning, that Bible verse says, lay down your deceit, your hypocrisy, and everything like that. Because it's just the signs of a wretched person. I mean, of course, all of us are hypocrites at times. There's no doubt about it. None of us are perfect. That's the whole point. It's the recognition of knowing that you're not a perfect person, but damn it, you want to be better. You want to be a better person. You want to do good. You want to make an effect. You don't want to just let your name die alone, cold in the darkness. No, you want your spirit here on the earth experiencing all this tremendous hurt to mean something. Nietzsche understood this, and he understood that it was because of God that we become better people. That is the wisdom that we cannot see beyond ourselves. And see, people always think Friedrich Nietzsche just exclaimed that we killed God because he loved it. He loved the fact that we killed God. No, he was saying that this is a bad thing. This is detrimental to our society and culture. That if we kill God, what more do we have? How are we going to have mercy or sympathy for our neighbor if we're going to be merciless to God, our Creator? Well, many people think that Friedrich Nietzsche was anti-Christian, which, in the most part, would probably be true, because he didn't like the institution of Christianity. He didn't like the institutionality. He did not like the church itself. Which, another reason is why I picked this Bible verse from 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Because, it highlights that we know that the focus should not be a physical church, but a spiritual church built within us. First, beginning with the foundations of our psychology, who we are as people, our consciousness. And, so this, and Friedrich Nietzsche, this is warning against atheists. And it's funny because Friedrich Nietzsche loved to take this and smear it in people's face and be like, haha, famous psychologist, wants to, tell everyone that God is dead because, God is dead, haha, devil horns.